My name was Evan Mercer. I was 32, a software architect who spent his days unpicking tangled logistics and rebuilding them into sleek, efficient machines, mostly for construction firms that breathed dust and deadlines. My family ran Mercer and Sons Building Supply, a quietly respected company in Ohio that stacked more than timber and pipe. It stacked generations of reputation. Tomorrow, I was to marry Claire Davenport. It felt like a faultless life on the surface, a neat suit, a crisp contract, a ring waiting to slide into place. This was not merely a marriage of hearts. It was a marriage of ledgers and leverage. Claire's family owned Davenport & Co. Developments, the region's powerhouse in real estate and our single largest client. My role had always been more than son and lover. I was the technical bridge, the man who would drag Mercer and Sons into the modern age and splice our systems into theirs. The union would cement millions of dollars of business, alliances sealed in champagne and small print. If you like tales of cold-blooded retribution and unexpected turns, subscribe. There are fresh, uncut stories every day, each darker than the last. I loved Claire with a tenderness that could have filled a quiet chapel, but I was not blind to the commerce that braided itself through our lives. Trust was my strongest currency. It was also the one I would soon discover was counterfeit. I traded equations for emotions, thinking my life was a solved problem, until the night before the wedding, when all predictable outputs collapsed into chaos. The rehearsal had wound down hours earlier. At the Hilton Garden Inn in Columbus, the air still tasted faintly of catering and waxed floors. I was at the hotel bar, practicing polite smiles among guests, when Oliver Grant, my oldest friend from college and my best man, drifted over. Oliver was the sort of person who treated modern devices like toys left unlocked in a nursery. As a software architect, this exasperated me, but I let it slide. He set his iPhone face up on the table and wandered away. The screen flickered. A message preview arrived, and the words were a shard of ice. "Loved what you sent me." I don't know why my thumb obeyed before reason did, but I opened the conversation. The rest of the sentence was a deadbolt in my chest. There, in a message Oliver had sent Claire, was a video, not some distant, anonymous clip, but footage that tasted of breath, linen, and the particular angle of a hotel room at night. The room was unmistakable, Claire's Hilton suite. The voices were unmistakable, Claire and Oliver. In a single compressed file, my future unspooled. Rage hit me first, raw and animal, a primal drumbeat that wanted fists and ruin. I imagined lunging across lacquered wood and raining blows down on Oliver when he returned. But another voice, colder and clearer, unspooled in my head. Don't become them. Don't become a headline. So I folded fury into calculation. With hands I tried to steady, I copied the video to my own phone before Oliver came back. When he returned, laughing about rehearsal and seating charts, I sat beneath my mask of amiability so perfectly that even I surprised myself. Inside, something precise and unyielding took control. I was a man who measured risk in algorithms. I would design revenge like I designed systems, fault-tolerant, scalable, and elegant. The footage was not an accident. As I sifted through the messages, a pattern emerged. Weeks of secret exchanges, photos and other clips tucked between mundane lines about flowers and vendors. While I had been planning our Caribbean honeymoon, they had been constructing a lie. Every compromising file was copied to an encrypted cloud I created that night, a vault that hummed like a small, obedient machine. Proof alone was not enough. I wanted impact, theater, inevitability. The wedding would be at Riverside Gardens on the Scioto's bank. 200 faces, clients who mattered, a ceremony at 4 in the afternoon, and a live stream to relatives who could not attend. I began to architect the delivery, a mass distribution system running on a server I provisioned at midnight, scripts that would simultaneously push a single link to every phone number on the guest list. The precise moment would be when I stood at the altar, when vows made of hope and paper were being spoken aloud. In the quiet hours, while the hotel slept and Claire dreamed of tomorrow, I did not sleep. I mapped out the logic of exposure as if writing a deployment plan. My jargon became poetry: latency, throughput, atomicity, words that now served a different altar. I tested the script until the logs were green, and the temporary server behaved like a small, obedient machine. Each SMS would carry a link to the video, hosted on a server I would bring up just for 1 hour. A tide that would come in, reveal everything, and then recede. By morning, I had performed the final dress rehearsal in my head a dozen times. I smiled, toasted, thanked people for their good wishes. I answered questions about the honeymoon, the seating plan, the weather. All of it a thin veneer over a steel core. My mind, trained to find the smallest fault in sprawling systems, had found a new pattern. Not a bug to fix, but a betrayal to optimize into a single, devastating truth. And so I waited, not with trembling hands or trembling breath, but with the calm of someone who had turned pain into a plan, love into a circuit diagram, and heartbreak into the most important project of his life. Morning came draped in gold and indifference, the day of my wedding. Or rather, the day of my reckoning. I woke with a calm so profound it frightened me, the kind of serenity a condemned man might feel just before dawn, when the world is silent enough for him to make peace with his own heartbeat. I showered, dressed, and drove to IHOP. I ordered my usual: black coffee, scrambled eggs, pancakes with syrup I didn't taste. The waitress asked if it was a special occasion. "Just Saturday," I said, with a smile. At another table, a child laughed so hard, milk came out his nose. I almost envied him. Innocence, the ultimate luxury. Back at the hotel, my phone buzzed with wedding logistics. Florists, chauffeurs, family texts, all orbiting a single event that none of them knew was about to detonate. Oliver arrived at 10 a.m., his grin too easy, his voice too loud. "Today's the big day, brother. Can't believe you're actually doing it." He clapped me on the back, adjusted my tie, completely unaware that every word he spoke was a blade pressed deeper into my chest. "You seem calm for a man getting shackled for life," he joked. "You know me," I said, smiling faintly. "When you plan every step, there's no reason to fear the outcome." He laughed, not realizing my words carried a different meaning altogether. At noon, Claire called. Her voice was sunlight poured through glass. "My love, I can't believe it's finally here. It'll be the most beautiful day of our lives." "I completely agree," I replied. "It'll be a day no one will ever forget." She giggled, mistaking prophecy for poetry. I let her believe that. By 2 p.m., the guests were streaming into Riverside Gardens, the venue gleaming with whites and pink, the Scioto River glinting behind it like a ribbon of light. The air was warm, the kind of weather that makes photographers smile. My code, my revenge, was alive now, humming silently beneath the world. Servers synced, SMS script queued, backup routines armed. I checked everything again the way a surgeon checks his instruments before an irreversible incision. "Ready for this, partner?" Oliver said, slapping my shoulder. "More than you'll ever know." I met his eyes, and for a moment he flinched, perhaps sensing something mechanical in my calm. At 3:30, we arrived at the venue. It was perfect. A cathedral of expectation. Rows of white chairs in military precision, roses curled around archways, strings playing softly in the distance. Claire's father, Robert Davenport, shook my hand. "Welcome to the family, son." I smiled. "Thank you, sir. I promise it'll be a union worth remembering." 15 minutes before the ceremony, Claire appeared at the far end of the aisle. The world seemed to hold its breath. She was radiant, wrapped in a Vera Wang gown that shimmered like snow under cathedral light. For an instant, I felt the ghost of love stir in my chest. Almost, I faltered. Then I caught sight of Oliver, standing beside me with that same easy smile, and the warmth inside me turned to steel. The music began. Claire walked toward me, veil trailing like a whisper of silk and lies. The guests rose. The Reverend opened his Bible, his voice steady as the river behind him. "Dear friends and family," he began, "we are gathered here today to celebrate the union of Evan and Claire." I could feel the script ticking like a countdown in my pocket. Claire's hand trembled slightly in mine. "I love you," she whispered. "I know." When the Reverend asked for vows, he passed me the microphone. The world narrowed to a single breath. I smiled. "I've prepared something very special for this moment." Claire's eyes glistened. She was ready for poetry. She was about to get prophecy. "Last night," I began, my voice clear through the speakers, "I discovered a truth that changed everything. A truth that deserves to be shared, not whispered." The crowd shifted. A murmur rippled through the seats. "You and Oliver," I said. "My best man, my best friend. You thought I'd never find out." I pressed the button on my phone. The algorithm executed. A symphony of vibrations began, faint at first, then swelling like a storm. Within seconds, 200 guests lifted their phones. Faces transformed. Curiosity into confusion, confusion into horror. "But you see," I continued softly, "Oliver was kind enough to document everything for me." Claire's smile cracked. Color drained from her face. Oliver stood frozen, pale as if the air had turned to ice. Gasps. Whispers. "My God," someone muttered. "This can't be real," another breathed. Claire lunged forward, reaching for the microphone. "Evan, please," she sobbed. "Let's talk in private." "No, Claire," I said, stepping back. "You chose secrecy. I choose daylight." Oliver tried to interject. "It was one mistake, man." "One mistake?" I cut in, eyes burning cold. 3 weeks of betrayal, Oliver. 3 weeks of you both mocking me while I planned your fairy tale?" The room was chaos now. Half the guests rising, half rooted to their seats, unwilling to miss the spectacle. The Reverend tried to mediate, his voice trembling. "Son, perhaps it's best if—" "With all due respect, Reverend," I interrupted gently, "this ceremony has reached its conclusion." The music had stopped, the river kept flowing. And in that moment, beneath the Ohio sun, I felt what true stillness was. Not peace, but aftermath. The air in Riverside Gardens had turned thick, not with love, but with scandal. The moment the last echo of my words faded, a new storm rose. Robert Davenport, Claire's father, rose from the front row, his face red with a fury too old for reason. His voice thundered through the speakers before the Reverend could react. "This is absurd," he barked. "We will not let a misunderstanding destroy years of partnership. Evan, you're being irrational." I turned to him slowly, my calm deliberate, the stillness of a man who already knows the ending of the story. "Irrational?" I said, my voice almost gentle. "Mr. Davenport, I suggest you watch the video before deciding what's real and what's not." Gasps rippled again. Cameras flashed like tiny bursts of lightning. Then came my mother, frail, trembling, tears cutting down her cheeks like rain down stained glass. "Evan, sweetheart, what's happening?" "Mom," I said softly, "I found out that Claire has been betraying me with Oliver." A collective shudder ran through the guests. "I can't marry someone who doesn't respect me." The Davenport family scrambled to contain the implosion. Claire's mother, Margaret, rushed toward the altar, her heels clacking like frantic metronomes. "Please, Evan, accidents happen. Claire is pregnant. Think of the child. Think of both families, the companies, the future." For the first time, I smiled, coldly, knowingly. The pregnancy. The final card in the deck. Emotional blackmail dressed as mercy. "Ah," I said into the microphone. "So there's a child in the middle of all this. How poetic." Claire broke down, sobbing, the bouquet slipping from her hands. "Evan, I can explain." "No need. But I think everyone here deserves to know whose child it is." Oliver, desperate, finally spoke. "Bro, this is insane. You're humiliating everyone." "No, Oliver," I said, turning to him. "You humiliated yourselves. I'm simply restoring balance." Then, to Claire, "Are you sure you know who the father is?" The silence was absolute. 200 people, breathless. Even the wind held still. Claire's lips parted, but no sound came. Her hesitation was confession enough. "I suggest a paternity test. Let's end the speculation, once and for all." That was when Robert Davenport snapped. His composure shattered like crystal underfoot. "Enough! You're destroying two good families over jealousy." I met his gaze. Cool. Unflinching. "Mr. Davenport, I'm not destroying anything. I'm just revealing what's already in ruins." And then, collapse. Claire crumpled to the floor of the altar, sobbing so violently that even the Reverend took a step back. Through her tears came the words that sealed everything. I don't know who the father is. It could be Oliver's." The collective gasp was like a wave hitting stone. No music, no movement, only stunned faces, the architecture of reputation collapsing in real time. The Davenports, the Mercers, their business alliance, their image, their millions, undone by one simple truth. I looked out over the wreckage, then spoke into the microphone one final time. "To everyone who came here expecting a celebration, I apologize, but I cannot marry someone who doesn't understand respect. Thank you for being here." I removed the ring from my finger and placed it gently on the altar beside her, beside the ruin she had made of both our futures. Oliver tried to reach for me. "Evan, wait, we can fix this." "There's nothing to fix," I said without looking back. "You made your choices, now live with them." I walked down the aisle, past the whispers, past the eyes that watched me with shock, pity, admiration. None of it mattered. I had executed my design with surgical perfection. Outside, the October sun burned clean and sharp against the river, I breathed for the first time in months. That night, I packed my bags in silence, every shirt folded with precision, every memory left behind like a deleted file. By dawn, I was gone, out of Columbus, out of the wreckage. Not escaping, healing. Days later, as I drove through winding highways and empty towns, my assistant Sarah began sending updates. Evan, the video's everywhere now. It's in WhatsApp groups, Facebook feeds, local news. The whole city's talking. 2 weeks later, another email. The paternity test came back. You were right. The child is Oliver's. Davenport and Company lost 3 major clients this week. No one wants to touch them. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I simply sat in my car at a rest stop off I-70, watching the sun go down over a field of rust-colored grass, and whispered, "Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just done." I drove the Blue Ridge Pikeway, camped beneath the open arms of Utah's Red Canyons, wandered the piers of San Diego with no destination except distance. Each mile stripped away a layer of bitterness, leaving only bone-deep clarity. 3 months later, in Denver, I stepped onto the stage of a tech conference to give a lecture about logistics optimization, the one thing in life that still made sense. That's when I saw her, Emily White, a ghost from 15 years ago, reborn in the crowd. Her eyes caught mine across the room, and for the first time since that cursed day by the river, my chest didn't feel hollow. "Evan Mercer," she said softly, stepping forward after my presentation. "I can't believe it's you." Emily White. 15 years vanished in a heartbeat. She was exactly as I remembered. Sharp eyes that didn't just look at you, they read you. Back in college, she'd been the kind of person who could turn a conversation about code into a meditation on life. We'd never been romantic, not then, but she'd always carried a quiet gravity that pulled you toward truth. For the first time in months, I smiled without pretending. "Emily, this is an amazing surprise." We went for coffee that afternoon, sunlight spilling through the windows of a small cafe off Larimer Street. She didn't mention the wedding, the scandal that had painted my name across Ohio gossip like graffiti on a wall, though I could tell she knew. She was kind enough to let silence protect what didn't need to be said. We talked about work, about algorithms and art, about the strange way time reshapes people. "You seem different," she observed. "More grounded. Like you've been through a storm and found the shore." "I have," I admitted. "I learned the hard way who's worth trusting, and who's worth letting go." She smiled. "The hardest lessons are the ones that stay." Weeks became months, emails turned into video calls, then plane tickets. 6 months later, I moved to Denver. Mercer and Sons no longer needed me in Columbus. I'd already turned the company into a digital machine that could run without me. I began consulting for firms across the country, helping others optimize what I had once let fall apart. The move was like shedding a skin. Denver's thin air tasted of beginnings. Emily and I grew together easily. No masks, no business alliances, no transactions masquerading as affection. She saw me not as a name on a company letterhead, but as a man who had survived himself. A year after the wedding that never was, Emily and I were living together. 2 years later, we stood among the granite peaks of Rocky Mountain National Park, exchanging vows under a sky that looked infinite. Only our families were there. No photographers, no contracts, no hidden motives. Just wind, love, and honesty. Meanwhile, back in Columbus, the aftershocks still trembled through the ruins. Sarah would send me occasional updates. "Claire had the baby, a boy. Looks just like Oliver. They got married, though everyone knows it wasn't for love. More damage control." The fallout had unfolded exactly as I foresaw. Davenport and Company lost clients, credibility, and their million-dollar sheen. A $50 million city project slipped through their fingers. Robert Davenport was forced to sell shares just to keep the doors open. Oliver fared worse. The marketing firm fired him. No one respectable wanted a scandal shadow in their offices. Last I heard, he was selling used cars at a dealership off High Street. My own family, unshackled from the political and social theater of the Davenports, thrived. We returned to what we did best: honest work, clean deals, steady growth. Profits rose 20% that year. Turns out, when you remove rot, things grow stronger. 5 years later, Emily and I welcomed our daughter, Sophie. 2 years after that, our son, Michael. Our home filled with the sounds of life, laughter, footsteps, the hum of something genuine. At night, when I tucked my children in, I would think of how close I'd come to living a lie, and how the storm that nearly destroyed me had been the very thing that set me free. Once, 6 years after the wedding, I returned to Columbus for a short visit. At Easton Town Center, beneath the glow of a shop window, I saw her, Claire. She was pushing a stroller. A small boy with Oliver's eyes sat inside. She looked older, the kind of tired that sleep can't fix. "Evan," she said, visibly uneasy. "Claire," I replied politely. She hesitated, the words catching in her throat. I wanted to apologize. For everything. You didn't deserve that." I nodded. "No," I said softly. "I didn't. But I also don't deserve to carry it anymore. I hope you find peace." Tears welled in her eyes. She whispered a thank you and walked away, her figure folding into the crowd until she was gone, like the last shadow of an old life, finally fading. That was the moment I understood something no algorithm could teach. My revenge had ended long ago. The real victory wasn't the destruction or the justice or the poetic exposure. It was this: the life I'd built after. The truth had freed me. The love I found rebuilt me. Today, at 40, I live in Denver with Emily and our children. My consulting firm serves clients nationwide. I'm respected in my field and, more importantly, at peace in my soul. Jessica and Daniel's betrayal could have been my undoing. Instead, it became the blueprint of my rebirth. I learned that the most powerful revenge isn't destruction, it's creation. It's building a life so radiant, so untainted, that those who tried to break you become nothing more than a footnote in the story of your happiness. They remained trapped in the web they spun. I walked free. If you enjoyed this story, share it. And remember, the truth doesn't need to scream to win. Sometimes it simply lives on quietly, in peace, in the heart of the one who refused to break.